Hi, everybody. So we're looking this week at identifying good measurement. So we'll look a little bit at measurement and different types of measures, the different scales of measurement, and then looking more at reliability and validity. Reliability of measurement, are the scores consistent? And validity of measurement, does the test measure what it's supposed to? Does it measure what it's been designed to measure? So, starting with the idea of measurement and ways to measure variables. When we're starting to conduct some research, we might start with what is like a conceptual variable or construct, something that's a little more theoretical. We've talked a little bit about this in a past unit, that constructs are sometimes a little bit like subjective, like they're a little bit hard to define. So we then create that operational definition of how it specifically will be measured or manipulated. So let's say we have the conceptual variable of happiness or like subjective well-being. And our operational definition of that is going to be how you respond to five items on like a 7-point scale, with one being strongly disagree and seven being strongly agree. So we're going to look at like a scale measuring subjective well-being or happiness, and your ratings on items like in most ways my life is close to my ideal, the conditions of my life are excellent. So we are operationally defining the idea of happiness or depression or intelligence. And we do this a lot, right, as a way to make sure that we are actually capturing the construct or concept that we want to capture. There's a lot of different types of measures, and they kind of generally tend to fall into three groups. So we have self-report measures, which operationalize, oops, sorry, I dimmed here, which operationalize by recording people's answers to questions about themselves. Typically something in like a questionnaire or an interview, like that one on the previous slide. So we ask you and you report on yourself, right? Answering questions about yourself in some kind of questionnaire or interview. Observational or behavioral measures are when we record observable behaviors, right? Like, so maybe we watch and we record the number of times that somebody smiles, the number of times a child plays with a toy, the number of times that kids fight on the playground. We're operationalizing by recording something that we can see and observe. And then finally, a physiological measure is where we operationalize by recording biological data. So maybe we record your heart rate or muscle movements of the face using an EMG. And is there one that's best? Not necessarily. It kind of is going to depend on what we are trying to measure. I mean, preferably, if we were to use multiple, they would all show a similar pattern, right? We want there to be that consistency between them, but it might depend on what it is you're trying to measure and what is the best way to operationalize it. In terms of scales of measurement, oop, here we go here, and like quantitative variables, we can use a couple of different types of scales, right? And in this case, like we're looking at things like an ordinal scale, an interval scale, and a ratio scale. So an ordinal scale is when we have a ranked order. The distance between numerals like might not be equal. This might be like the order of people who finish in a race, ranking 10 movies from your most favorite to your least favorite. So we have like first place, second place, third place, fourth place, and so on, where we're ranking things in order, hence the ordinal. An interval scale is when numerals represent equal distances between levels. There isn't necessarily like a true zero. Like, for example, IQ, you can't say that someone is twice as intelligent. So with this, we have subsequent numerals representing like equal distances. Again, like IQ score, shoe size, the degree of agreement on like a scale. And then a ratio scale is when numerals represent equal intervals. There is a true zero. So for example, like an exam score, you could say that somebody answered twice as many problems correctly. So this one says in which numerals represent equal distance, zero represents none of the variables being measured. So number of seconds to respond to a computer task, your height in inches or centimeters, the number of questions answered correctly on an exam. All of these are different scales of measurement that are very commonly used. Now, when it comes to reliability and validity, these are two really, again, huge concepts in this class, right? That we'll go over and over and over and over again. Are the scores consistent? When we talk about reliability, another word for reliability is consistency. This refers to the consistency of research, studying or measuring the test, a study, whatnot. We can use a scatter plot to quantify reliability. We can look at points on a plot. We can also use Pearson's R or the correlation coefficient to evaluate reliability. A couple of different ways we can evaluate reliability, a few different types of reliability that we'll talk about, but in general, we're talking about consistency. That is a synonym for reliability. So different types of reliability, three kind of big ones here. Test, retest reliability. Do people get consistent scores every time they use the measure? Whether it's self-report or observational or physiological. Let's say we measure somebody's heart rate. Is it similar the next time? If I give you an exam measuring your knowledge of how you do in this class, are you going to get a relatively consistent score between your takes of the test? So you take the test once and then you take it again, right? And we look at how consistent or reliable your scores are. Test, retest, reliability. Another way that we can examine reliability is inter-rater reliability. Consistent scores no matter who does the measuring, right? So let's say we have three different raters who are watching something and giving a score on it. How consistent are their scores with each other? So you see this a lot in like the Olympics, for example, how there's multiple judges who are going to be rating the performance. And then we take all of those scores together and get an average score, but you want their scores to be pretty consistent. If one person gives a 10 and person gives a 3, there's a problem there. So we want to make sure that there is consistency no matter who does the measuring. We can also look at what's called internal reliability. Does the participant provide consistent patterns of responses regardless of how like they have phrased the question? This is something that you would do with like self-report. And one really great way to do this is split half reliability. So let's say I give you an instrument that you report on, and I give you half of it, and then I give you the other half. I can examine the scores on the first half versus the second half and see if there's a consistency between them. And you can actually calculate this with things like Cronbach's alpha and look at like patterns that are there and that split half reliability, like correlation, or you can use things like Pearson's R and scatter plots, like we'll look at in a minute. So all three of these are different types of reliability that we can evaluate and see how much consistency is present. So we can use a scatter plot, kind of like we did with association claims. So it's exactly what we're doing actually. And we can look for evidence of reliability. This would be like a specific type of association claim where we look at the first measurement and the second measurement. Are they lining up, right? We can literally look at them as data points on a scatter plot and see how close they are as a way of evaluating reliability. We can use scatter plots, right, like to evaluate inter-rater reliability as well. Let's say we look at Matt's ratings and Mark's ratings. How close are they to the line, right? How close are they to each other, right? So we can use a scatter plot to look at the correlation between different points of ratings to examine how reliable or consistent they are, right? And so again, like looking here at like inter-rater reliability. We can also use Pearson's R and a correlational number in order to evaluate reliability. If you remember that Pearson product moment correlation coefficient, or Pearson's R for short, we can look at the number and see what is the correlation, right? Is it 0.56 or 0.93? You can see how these points are kind of spread out versus these ones are very clustered together. This is a stronger correlation, has higher reliability. So there you can evaluate this numerically with that Pearson's R, or you could evaluate it visually through something like a scatter plot. Now, validity, equally important, different focus. Validity looks at accuracy. So reliability is consistency. How consistent or reliable are the results? Validity is, does something measure what it was supposed to measure? Is it accurate. And we talked about these before. We talked about internal validity, construct validity, statistical validity, and external validity, those big four validities in a previous unit. But all of these kind of break down and look at other like specific little types of validity within them, which we'll look at a little bit here in this unit. So one thing we can look at is face validity and content validity. Does it look like a good measure? Have you ever looked at something and you're like, I can just tell this isn't like a great measure of whatever? That's very, very common. Sometimes it's really easy to spot. But for abstract constructs, sometimes there is no single like direct measure. Like intelligence, for example, you might need multiple things to get you to the construct and like operationalization of intelligence. So face validity is when it looks like you want it to look. It looks like what you want to measure, which is a little bit subjective, right? Like, so maybe it looks like something that is going to measure your mathematical ability. It feels like it's going to be an adequate measure of it, right? The content validity is the measure contains all of the parts that your theory says it should. Again, a little bit subjective. So, for example, if intelligence includes reasoning as well as planning, you need to have items that assess both. So, you want it to include all of the content that you feel like it should contain. With criterion validity, does it correlate with key behaviors? So we can look again at correlational evidence for criterion validity. We can measure associated with a concrete behavioral outcome that it should be associated with, right? So we have like an aptitude score and sales figures and aptitude score test B, and we look at how tightly clustered they are together, right? We want the two things to have like that correlation, right? So we measure a concrete behavioral outcome with something that we feel like it should be associated with. Other evidence for criterion validity, does it correlate with key behaviors? Known group paradigms. Do the scores on the measure distinguish among a set of groups whose behavior is already confirmed, right? So if we already have like something that is known or confirmed, does it match up with this? If it's a valid measure of depression, the BDI or Beck Depression Inventory should be higher here as this group has already been diagnosed with depression, right? So we can compare it to something that's already in existence, that is already a known group paradigm, and they should match up with each other. So again, we're looking at, does it match up with what you would expect? Does it match up with what is known and what is measured and accurate? Another type of validity, convergent validity. Does the pattern make sense? Convergent validity is a self-report measure, should correlate more strongly with self-report of similar constructs. So again, if we're looking at one measure of depression, it should measure up and correlate strongly with other measures of depression. Is there convergent? Do they come together in a way that you would expect? And does the pattern make sense? You would also hope that you then have what's called discriminant validity or divergent validity, where the measure should correlate less strongly with other measures of different constructs. So when we're looking at this one, see how it's very like spread out because they aren't necessarily matching up. For example, if you're a psychologist trying to develop a screening instrument for generalized anxiety disorder, what measures would you want to show less of a correlation with, like less strongly? So you're going to look for things that would match up and make sense that are convergent, and then things that would make sense and not match up and have less of a connection that are divergent or discriminant. Finally, in terms of the relationship between reliability and validity, a measure can be less valid than it is reliable, but it cannot be more valid than it is reliable. So let me say that again, right? So a measure can be less valid than reliable, but not more valid than reliable, if that makes sense. If a measure doesn't even correlate with itself, then how could it possibly be more correlated with other variables? So reliability is necessary, but not sufficient for validity. Okay, so if that makes sense to kind of draw those conclusions between what you would see between reliability and validity. Okay, so that is everything for the lecture for week number 6 on identifying good measurement. As always, make sure that you read through the lecture that I created and then also through the required reading materials. All of it together will help you to understand the information in this unit. Of course, as always, if you have any questions, feel free to email me, and I'll see you all next week.